And President Donald Trump's tweets are apparently never good for the markets. In fact, Bank of America Merrill Lynch analysts say the president's tweets often have a negative effect on equity returns. Yahoo Finance's Javier David is here. So Javier, walk us through exactly what they are saying. How much of an impact or how big of a negative impact does this have?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few key takeaways here that Bank of America gave us. The first is that they're actually fairly constructive on stocks in the long term. They prefer them to bonds, even in the current environment of volatility and the context of the big macro picture, which is the trade war. All that said, what they found was the trade talk, a lot of the politics surrounding 2020, and the president's tweets contribute to volatility. Now, we all know that whole debate about causation versus correlation, but what they found was that there was, in fact, a very strong correlation between the days that President Trump tweets a lot, and when he tweets less, the stock market does better. So in days where he tweets about 30 plus tweets, there's a negative return on those days of around negative 9 basis points, whereas days where he tweets less than 5 times, there's a positive return of about 5 basis points.
30 tweets or more in one day, you would think sounds like a lot, but as I understand it, that happens pretty often.
Yeah, because how many tweets do you read a week?
Right.
How many Trump tweets do you read?
Well, he did 122 over Labor Day weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Which is insane.
Help us.
Well, I mean, if you know anything about how the president operates, he uses Twitter to control the message and sort of speak above the media. He wants his message unfiltered. The trade war is a big part of what's going on in the markets. He's trying to manage expectations. He says things that aren't necessarily borne out by the facts. And the incessant tweeting in a lot of ways is a way for him to kind of control the message. So it makes sense. The more he tweets, the more he's probably at least a little concerned about what the status of the trade war, the negotiations are, and he's trying to manage those expectations.
Like there are traders who likely interpret any tweeting, even when it is blustery and sounds positive, as a sign of uncertainty and concern and anxiety, and that prompts more anxiety.
Right. So, so for the average, American investor, right? Obviously, we're still saying you should still put your money into U.S. equities. So then, do you just have to kind of just put up and deal with this risk essentially every time the president tweets a lot?
Well, it's funny because the folks at Bank of America said specifically tread cautiously. You have to weigh this in concert with everything else that's going on. So the president, back like a month ago, or just yesterday rather, we'll start you off with yesterday, he's tweeting a lot about negative rates and the dollar lately. So Germany has negative rates and he's seeing this as something of a positive, but in fact it's not. It's basically, I think he thinks of it as the government getting paid by investors to hold this money. So he sees it almost as a source of revenue. But again, negative rates are not a good thing because it's a sign of fear in the markets that investors are really trying to find safety for their money.
Javier, isn't there a case to be made just that the president just happens to be tweeting because there is a lot going on in the news and in the markets, you know? So yes, there might be a negative return, but that might just be because he's active on days that there's a lot of stuff going on. Right,
and there's a lot of stuff going on because primarily, again, the big macro picture here is the trade war. So on every day, depending on what day it is, the expectations are different. The market gets whipsawed by a tweet from the president or something issued by China, which says we can easily counteract it. So the market's very reactive, in other words, and investors don't really know who to believe, but they're trying to position their money accordingly.
Right.
All right, Javier David, thank you so much.
Thank you.